Recording in progress.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashta Prayeshva Padreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We're continuing the Srimad Bhagavatam on Canto 1, Chapter 2. We are on verse 28 and 29. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Mukha, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriya, Vasudeva param Jnanam, Vasudeva param Tapaha, Vasudeva paro Dharmo, Vasudeva paragati. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
In the revealed scriptures, the translation. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of performing sacrifice is to please Him. Yoga is for realizing Him. All fruitive activities are ultimately rewarded by Him only. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know Him. Religion, dharma, is rendering loving service unto Him. He is the supreme goal of life. Purport. That Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is the only object of worship is confirmed in these two shlokas. In the Vedic literature, there is the same objective, establishing one's relationship and ultimately reviving our lost loving service unto him. That is the sum and substance of the Vedas. In the Bhagavad Gita, the same theory is confirmed by the Lord in his own words. The ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to know him only. All the revealed scriptures are prepared by the Lord through his incarnation in the body of Srila Vyasadeva, just to remind the fallen souls, conditioned by material nature, of Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. No demigod can award freedom from material bondage. That is the verdict of all the Vedic literatures. Impersonalists who have no information of the personality of Godhead minimize the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord and put him on equal footing with all other living beings, and for this act, such impersonalists get freedom from material bondage only with great difficulty. They can surrender unto him only after many, many births in the culture of transcendental knowledge. One may argue that the Vedic activities are based on sacrificial ceremonies. That is true. But all such sacrifices are also meant for realizing the truth about Vasudeva. Another name of Vasudeva is Yajna, sacrifice. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that all sacrifices and all activities are to be conducted for the satisfaction of Yajna, or Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. This is the case also with the yoga systems. Yoga means to get into touch with the Supreme Lord. What does yoga mean?
Get into touch with the Supreme Lord.
Correct. The process, however, includes several bodily features such as asana, dhyana, pranayama, and meditation. And all of them are meant for concentrating upon the localized aspect of Vasudeva, represented as Paramatma. Paramatma realization is but partial realization of Vasudeva, and if one is successful in that attempt, one realizes Vasudeva in full. But by ill luck, most yogis are stranded by the powers of mysticism achieved through the bodily process. Ill-fated yogis are given a chance in the next birth by being placed in the families of good learned brahmanas or in the families of rich merchants in order to execute the unfinished task of Vasudeva realization. If such fortunate brahmanas and sons of rich men properly utilize the chance, they can easily realize Vasudeva by good association with saintly persons. Unfortunately, such preferred persons are captivated again by material wealth and honor, and thus they practically forget the aim of life. This is also so for the culture of knowledge. According to Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 items in culture and knowledge. By such culture of knowledge, one becomes gradually prideless, devoid of vanity, non-violent, forbearing, simple, devoted to the great spiritual master, and self-controlled. By culture of knowledge, one becomes unattached to hearth and home, and becomes conscious of the miseries due to death, birth, old age, and disease. And all culture of knowledge culminates in devotional service to the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Therefore, Vasudeva is the ultimate aim in culturing all different branches of knowledge. Culture of knowledge leads one to the transcendental plane of meeting Vasudeva. Culture of knowledge leading one to the transcendental plane of meeting Vasudeva is real knowledge. Physical knowledge in its various branches is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita as ajnana, or the opposite of real knowledge. The ultimate aim of physical knowledge is to satisfy the senses, which means prolongation of the term of material existence, and thereby continuance of the threefold miseries. So prolonging the miserable life of material existence is nescience. But the same physical knowledge leading to the way of spiritual understanding helps one to end the miserable life of physical existence and to begin the life of spiritual existence on the plane of Vasudeva. The same applies to all kinds of austerities. Tapasya means voluntary acceptance of bodily pains to achieve some higher end of life. Ravana and Hiranyakashipu underwent a severe type of bodily torture to achieve the end of sense gratification. Sometimes modern politicians also undergo severe types of austerities to achieve some political end. This is not actual tapasya. One should accept voluntary bodily inconvenience for the sake of knowing Vasudeva, because that is the way of real austerities. Otherwise, all forms of austerities are classified as modes of passion and ignorance. Passion and ignorance cannot end the miseries of life. Only the mode of goodness can mitigate the threefold miseries of life. Vasudeva and Devaki, the so-called father and mother of Lord Krishna, underwent penances to get Vasudeva as their son. Lord Sri Krishna is the father of all living beings, Bhagavad Gita 14:4. Therefore, he is the original living being of all other living beings. He is the original eternal enjoyer amongst all other enjoyers. Therefore, no one can be his begetting father, as the ignorant may think. Lord Sri Krishna agreed to become the son of Vasudeva and Devaki upon being pleased with their severe austerities. Therefore, if any austerities have to be done, they must be done to achieve the end of knowledge, Vasudeva. Vasudeva is the original personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. As explained before, the original personality of Godhead expands himself by innumerable forms. Such expansion of forms is made possible by his various energies. His energies are also multifarious, and his internal energies are superior and external energies inferior in quality. They are explained in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verses 4 through 6, as the para and the apara prakritis. So, his expansions of various forms which take place via the internal energies are superior forms, whereas the expansions which take place via the external energies are inferior forms. The living entities are also his expansions. The living entities who are expanded by his internal potency are eternally liberated persons, whereas those who are expanded in terms of the material energies are eternally conditioned souls. Therefore, all culture of knowledge, austerities, sacrifice, and activities should be aimed at changing the quality of the influence that is acting upon us. For the present, we are all being controlled by the external energy of the Lord, and just to change the quality of the influence, we must endeavor to cultivate spiritual energy. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that those who are Mahatmas, or those whose minds have been so broadened as to be engaged in the service of Lord Krishna, are under the influence of the internal potency. And the effect is that such broad-minded living beings are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord without deviation. That should be the aim of life, and that is the verdict of all the Vedic literatures. No one should bother themselves with fruitive activities or dry speculation about transcendental knowledge. Everyone should at once engage themselves in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor should one worship different demigods who work as different hands of the Lord for creation, maintenance, or destruction of the material world. There are innumerable powerful demigods who look over the external management of the material world. They are all different assisting hands of Lord Vasudeva. Even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma are included in the list of demigods. But Lord Vishnu, or Vasudeva, is always transcendentally situated. Even though he accepts the quality of goodness in the material world, he is still transcendental to all the material modes. The following example will clear that matter more explicitly. In the prison house, there are the prisoners and the managers of the prison house. Both the managers and the prisoners are bound by the laws of the king. But even though the king sometimes comes in the prison, he is not bound by the laws of the prison house. The king is therefore always transcendental to the laws of the prison house, as the Lord is always transcendental to the laws of the material world. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Om Ajnanatimirantasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vachakalpatarupyascha Kripasindhubhyeva Patitanam Bhavnebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshaya Putale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadita Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Haribol. Great to be with all of you. So in any endeavor, we have to know the goal. We have to know where we're going. If we don't, problems arise. If you are driving without Google Maps, or there used to be this thing called map books, or an internal map in your head, or external signs telling you where your destination is, and you know what the name of the destination is, what's going to happen? You're going to wander a long time. So there has to be signposts, there have to be reminders. And this is a really good example of a reminder verse. This is a verse that has the word Vasudeva, it's a name for Krishna, something like 8 times. And it's a reminder verse because it's a map. The Shastra is a map. It has to tell us where we are and who we are, and also what we're not. You're not matter, you're spirit. This is who you are, and this is where you are. You're in the material world. What is the material world? It's Krishna's external energy. And it has to tell you the goal. Someone's asking what verse this was. This is chapter 1, Bhagavatam, Canto 1, chapter 2, text 28 and 29. They're translated together. 1, 2, 28, 20. And it has to tell you the goal. You have to actually know the goal, where you're going. And there's a relationship with the goal. Just like when you're driving, you have a relationship with your destination. If there's no relationship with the destination, then it's an arbitrary trip. It's like, where are we going? We're going, you spin a globe and you're like, we're going to Madagascar. Get in your car. Random, but that's not purposeful. Actually, everyone does something purposeful. Even if it's to be random, they're just like, I want to see what the world is all about. That's the purpose. There has to be some purpose. So we have a relationship with our destination always. Our relationship with Krishna is that everything comes from him and he's maintaining us entirely. And we actually belong to him and want to know him. And we want to go back to him. Some form of that, some calculation of that kind of thing. And so we have to hear about it and the goal. Just like when you're driving, you have to know where the destination is and you have to have some motivation for getting there. If you're driving a car and you're like trying to get to the Bhakti house for the morning program, and you have a purpose for getting there, then when you're driving the car and things come up, you're like, well, I want to get there because you have your purpose. And if something else comes up, you drive by your local bakery, it's baking some cinnamon rolls, then you have to have some reason for not stopping and getting cinnamon rolls and gorging yourself on the cinnamon roll, because you have to have some purpose for where you're going. So this is what Shastra is. It's reminding us of the goal and the reason for having that as a realistic goal, because there are so many other goals we can have. That's the thing about human life. It's actually a very privileged position. In other forms of life, such as plant life, fungal life, bacterial life, animal life, viral life, you don't really have a lot of choice over your goals. Your goals are very simple: to eat, to find some place where you can rest, to procreate, and to avoid suffering in the form of something that's going to come and eat you, form of bad weather, what have you, those kinds of things. Those are your goals. And that's really it. I mean, the higher mammals have other goals. You can see they actually have more developed relationships. Dogs and cats and primates, they can actually have a more refined emotional palate. So we can, and even elephants will grieve, they're very intelligent beings. So that basically there's less agency over your goals, but humans can actually have any number of goals. We can just choose to eat as much as we want. And if you want to do that, you can go and compete in the hot dog eating contests that exist and make a lot of money with sponsors for hot dog eating contests and dedicate your life to that. And if you want to sleep as much as you want, you can do that. And if you want to do anything, actually, a human being has a lot of freedom. We have a lot of freedom to decide what the goal is. And we have the higher intelligence to decide what's actually in my best interests. So this verse is about how Scripture is showing us that our best interest is to aim at Krishna. And all these aspects of life are for him. And there's so many different aspects. There's Scripture itself. There's forms of worship, activities of worship. There's yoga practice. There's the duties of life. There's knowledge. There's religion or dharma. And there's your destination. And this verse is saying Krishna is the ultimate purpose of all these things. So we can touch on some of these things. For example, knowledge. Everybody has to gather some knowledge in the world. You have to. Everybody has a list of random facts they know because they went to school, and some of them are really relevant and you have to use them all the time. Like, what's the speed limit, and how do I actually drive this car, and how do I tie my shoelaces, and what's that person's name again? And what is it about my boss I'm not supposed to mention? Oh yeah, it's their bald spot. They're really sensitive to that. If I mention that, I could get fired. And other things like that. Now, a lot of it is just random knowledge you had to pick up, and often you know, like a squared plus b squared equals c squared, the Pythagorean theorem. I don't actually use that in my day-to-day, but I learned it enough that it's there. So a human being has a capacity, a great capacity for knowledge, actually. It's remarkable what a capacity we have for knowledge. People can accumulate knowledge of all kinds. They can learn double-digit number of languages. They can study and become conversant in any number of things. They can memorize pi to 1,200 digits. They can do so many things. And actually, this is another privilege of human life, is that we can have very refined knowledge. And as Prabhupada actually very boldly puts it in this purport, when talking about knowledge, he says, well, first he references a series of verses in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, texts 8 through 12, I believe. There is how many items? 18 items of knowledge. And starts with amanitvam, adampitvam, ahimsak, shanti, arjavam, acharya pasanam, shaucham, stadium, atma, vinigraha. 5 verses, goes on like that. Amanitvam, humility, pridelessness, non-violence. These are all principles that actually increase your capacity for knowledge, and so on and so forth. And then he goes on to say, but besides the principle of actually how to attain knowledge, which is what those verses tell you, he says there's spiritual knowledge and there's material knowledge. Spiritual knowledge leads you to meeting Krishna. Material knowledge ultimately is for gratifying the senses. It's for just mental satisfaction, or for how to actually exist in the world in terms of the body and mind. And then he goes on to say, however, but the same physical knowledge leading to the way of spiritual understanding helps one to end the miserable life of physical existence and begin the life of spiritual existence. So there's this question of application, and I'll give an example of what this looks like. So somebody can say like, well, you know, Prabhupada's saying there's spiritual knowledge, there's material knowledge, so one is good and one is bad, black and white. Well, to contrast that, we have the example of someone like Sir Isaac Newton. Most of us have heard of Sir Isaac Newton because we learn about him in school. He's a very important scientist. Actually, most of modern science is based on, in one way or another, one contribution or another that Isaac Newton gave us hundreds of years ago. Isaac Newton was a devotee. He was a devotee of God in the Christian faith. He had a lot of faith in and love for God. And he was actually a very pious person. He was very simple in his material expression of life, and he was very, very devoted. And it's described that he entered science, for which he was prodigious, by the way. He was actually a prodigiously intelligent scientist. He had remarkable grasp of the physical universe. He was terrifically good at creating theories and testing them to understand how the material world worked. But he entered it with one purpose. His purpose was, I want to understand the glory of God by looking at it through the lens of the world he created. That was his expressed desire. And therefore, his science was a form of devotional service for him. And Sir Isaac Newton, was he famous for like talking about the law of gravity? That's him, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's that like, probably didn't actually happen. So there's that idea that he sat under a tree and an apple fell on his head, and he's like, things keep falling. So let's call that gravity. And he, you know, gave a name to this thing that no one ever thought of in those terms before, and became very important scientifically. Whether that actually happened that way or not, we do know that for him, his work in the world, which was very, you know, recognized and was very much work in the world, was a form of devotional service, because he saw it as, here I am testing my brain. I see it as a God-given brain. And I see the things that I'm testing, I'm trying to understand, as part of the paraphernalia of the universe, expressing God's will, or expressing his capacity for expression in this world. So I want to know the great artist by studying the creation of his art like that. And that actually satisfied him for some time. Notably, after a short but incredibly prolific career as a scientist, he retired, and he decided to spend the rest of his life just chanting the Christian equivalent of bhajans, hymns. He was very dedicated to hymns, and he became like a simple, pious Christian for the rest of his life. He's like, I'm done with that. I did the science thing. I'm good. And he moved on. He retired. Took sannyas, you could say. But one way or another, there is that application of what we're doing, whether it's directly Krishna conscious spiritual activity, like, you know, chanting Jai Radha Madhava or japa or coming together with devotees, or whether it's indirectly, we're trying to connect what we're doing into like, well, I'm working with Krishna's energy here and I'm trying to serve him with the fruits of my labor, honestly, however I get it, whether it's money or what have you, and I dedicate that to my practice. And so there's a way in which even our so-called material life can be spiritual. And so there's this reminder here that everything, whether it's the knowledge we're getting or the activities we're performing or yoga practice, is ultimately for connecting. Prabhupada goes out of his way, as he often does in this purport, to talk about the goal of yoga, because yoga is something that was popular in the 60s and 70s when Srila Prabhupada was writing these purports. This is Canto 1, so Prabhupada wrote this before he ever came to America. He wrote it probably in the early 60s. But even then, we could see yoga was something that was starting to become popular. And when something gets popular, it can be appropriated, which means that you can take it out of its context and have it represent another context. Like you can imagine if somebody pours their heart and soul into writing a song that means a lot to them, and they turn on the TV one day, that's your first mistake. And then they get to a commercial and someone has taken their song to sell an item that they have absolutely no affinity with. In fact, it has nothing to do with the song itself. Maybe it's even contrary, anathema to the song's message. They would be very upset. In fact, there would be a lawsuit incoming because you can't do that, because it's appropriation. You can't use someone else's hard work to push your own agenda. It's not considered appropriate. However, you can get away with it if you don't actually cross certain legal lines. You can't actually steal someone's song, but you can take something from someone else's culture and use it for a different purpose until someone calls you out on it. And that's something that people do all the time, because it's a very multinational, multicultural world, and that's a beautiful thing. And that means we have access to all kinds of different traditions, which means we have the responsibility of hearing from those in the tradition what the purpose is of the things in those traditions we actually are hearing about. Like yoga. Yoga is a beautiful thing. It's actually one of the most refined ways of keeping your body and mind in shape ever created. And it's so remarkable that most of the physical and mental benefits were codified only in the last 200 years, because the original aspect of yoga was just to, as Prabhupada puts it, to help us turn to the presence of God within. That's the purpose of it. Everything else is a secondary benefit, which is fine. As we mentioned in our, I think it was, I don't know if it was the last morning program class or one of these Tuesday classes, there's the primary and the secondary. You're going to get some secondary benefit, but the primary benefit of yoga is to connect with the Supreme. So whether it's yoga or knowledge or activities or austerities, we have to know what our primary thing is, and our secondary things are also there. So with austerities, it's like, well, you have to wake up early in the morning for something. If you're an athlete, you got to wake up early in the morning to train. If you're an employee, you got to wake up to go to work. One way or another, you have to do some things in life you don't want to do just for your senses. You have to do them for some higher purpose. And so the highest end of austerity, Prabhupada is talking about, is to do something temporarily not satisfying for your senses for some long-term benefit spiritually. And we're all experiencing that right now because we woke up relatively early to chant and to take association with devotees. And I don't know about you, but I've been waking up, either waking up early in the morning or trying to deliberately for like 20 years now. Maybe not almost that long. And it's like, I still get benefit from it every time I wake up early, and I still wake up with like part of my mind saying like, oh, but don't you just want to not? Could we just not, big guy? Could we just like, how about we don't say we did? You know, and it's like, there's an austerity of like, I hear you, we're getting up anyway. And that kind of sucks for a few seconds. And then you get up and at least I feel like, all right, that's good. I feel like I'm in the flow. I'm lights hitting my eyes. I'm a little better. I'm getting the kinks out. And that few seconds of suffering is something you have to go through pretty much every time. And that's austerity. Austerity is there's the short term and there's the long term, and I'm just willfully deciding to avoid to let go of temporary satisfaction, which is like one of the hardest things you can ask of anybody. Can you just not be happy? Can you just not feel good? And we're doing that for feeling better in the long term, ultimately. And then when we're even more refined, it's like, well, I don't even care if I feel good in my japa this morning. I just really want to be with Krishna. I want to give my heart to him. He can give me lower back pain. I don't mind. I'm going to get up and chant anyway. That's like a whole other level of like dedication. We're capable of that. It's possible to feel that level of dedication as much as it's possible to be, you know, a mom and wake up at 3:30 in the morning when your child cries for the 6th time because they're exercising their newfound lungs, and you're like, I'm doing it because I love them. You know, it's possible to have that love for Krishna and more. So that's it's an austerity. It's an austerity to be a parent. It's an austerity to go to school. It's an austerity to wake up for work. It's an austerity to be in a relationship. It's an austerity to take care of your body. It's an austerity to be a law-abiding citizen. I don't want to stop at the red light. I want to keep going, but I do it. And so the ultimate point of austerity is to control your senses and mind for Christian service. So this verse is just giving all these different aspects of our life. We have austerities, we have our yoga practice, we have our knowledge gathering senses, we have our dharma or religious or, you know, moral, purposeful thing. And all these things are for Krishna. And so we're just given a reminder, we're putting a pin in our map again, that this is your destination. And we're just checking in, giving ourselves like that check into our destination so we can remind ourselves and see, well, am I actually pointed that way in this moment, or am I pointed somewhere else because I got distracted by the squirrel, I got distracted by the bakery with the cinnamon rolls, I got distracted by my lower back, whatever it is, or am I just like, I forgot that I can even have a purpose? That can happen too, right? You're wandering through life and you forget that actually, as a human, I have the prerogative to decide what my purpose is. Sometimes we're so like bewildered, we just go with whatever else is around us until we realize, like, I haven't made a real choice in years. I don't even know who I am anymore. You know, have you ever had that? You're like, I've just been doing what I've been told for some time. And so these verses are like a reminder that, wow, actually way down deep in my heart, I chose to start chanting. I chose to start practicing not because Kishori is just such a nice person and she said I should do it and I want to make her happy, but there's a deeper reason. There's actually, like, in my heart, I feel like this is right. And these verses are like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is my goal. And I want to aim that way. And this is how I can do it with my dharma and my money and my time and my yoga and whatever, knowledge and everything else. And great, good. And so this is why hearing Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam every day is so necessary. This is a great example of the kind of like goal verse that you get a lot. You know, Prabhupada alluded to a similar verse in Bhagavad Gita. It's 15:15. Sirvasi chaham hriti sannivishto mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. It's the first half of the verse. Krishna says, I'm seated in everyone's heart, and from me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Then he says, Vedaishchasad Ved aham eva vedyo, Vedantikrit Vedavat eva chaham. There's the word again, aham, over and over again. Veda, by all the Vedas, I'm to be known, and I'm the supreme knower of the Vedas. That this is the whole point of scripture, he's saying. The scripture you're reading, when you read that verse, Bhagavad Gita, he's saying this is the whole point of the book you're reading. And every other spiritual book you're reading is to know me. So this is a reminder verse, a goal verse, so you don't just get lost. Because even when you're reading scripture, you can get lost. It's like, oh, this is really cool. I like the sound of the Sanskrit. Or like, how do people get lost in scripture? Well, they can get lost by like finger pointing. Oh, here's a verse talking about how you can go wrong. Look at all those bad people going wrong. They're so bad. Don't be like them. That's losing the point. It's a secondary thing. You want to know how not to act, but that's not the point of scripture. The point of scripture is to come to Krishna. And knowing how to act and how not to act is service to that goal. Because if you're running off into a ditch somewhere, it's hard to come to Krishna. But you have to know your goal. So there's these reminder verses. Just like on my laptop, there's handy dandy function. When I'm on my laptop late at night, it pops up and says, you're gonna wake up in 8.5 hours. Just to remind me, like, oh yeah, don't get lost because you have a goal. You have a goal to wake up on time tomorrow morning and do whatever it is, come to morning program, chant your japa. And then I'm like, no, I'm gonna space out some more. No, whatever it is, at least you have a reminder so you know what your goal is. You can have these self-made reminders for yourself. You can put sticky notes all over your fridge. You can have things on your laptop. You can have good people around you who remind you. You can have Shastra, you can have pictures of Krishna, you can have the Maha Mantra, the ultimate reminder. I'm here for Krishna. I'm here for service. I'm here for bhakti. Om Tat Sat. So now we can take any reflections on anything that was said or comments. This is a long verse in purport,
Mhm.
and there's a lot here. Anything that stuck out?
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, thank you. So good. I can go back and find this now that I know the verse, but I missed something. I mean, I can almost guess, but only the blank can mitigate the threefold miseries of life. It was like towards the end of the reading. If anybody knows what that was.
Mitigate the threefold miseries of life. Let's see if I can find it.
Okay.
But the same physical knowledge leading to the way of spiritual understanding helps one to end the miserable life of physical existence. Is that it?
Did you say mitigate? I just remember the word mitigate.
See, if
Okay.
on your laptop, I could find it really easily because there's a really good search function. Fortunately, the
Fine.
search function for the Gita.
There. But I have more questions. One more. So I like how you said, remember the goal when you're driving, and I'm sure it's not that expression, like it's not it's the journey, not the destination.
Mhm.
It kind of like made me think of that. It's not necessarily opposite. I mean, you can still enjoy the journey towards Krishna, but I guess not get too caught up in like the moments and just really keep.
I mean, it's both because the expression "it's the journey, not the destination." I've always taken it as don't live in the future, live in the present, right? So if your goal is Krishna, here I'll give you an example of like making Krishna your goal, but living in the future. If you live your entire life doing all this stuff that your spiritual tradition asks you to do, that you've embraced as a spiritual practice, whether it's chanting Hare Krishna or whatever, but you're like, after I die, then I'm going to get the benefit. And you live your whole life unaware of Krishna's presence right now. I would make the case that that's not really the most refined form of practice. It's actually very rajasic because it's like, I have to gain something in the future. It's not actually present with how Krishna's existing in my heart at this very moment. He is actually living with me right now, witnessing me, looking at me. Am I looking at him? Or am I looking at the future when I could theoretically know him? Because we can know him right now. And so another way of framing that is like, you can aim at Krishna and act in such a way right now that you can try to experience him. Right? And so the expression of it's not the journey, it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's just a reminder to be present with whatever's happening now, that it's instrumental in the destination. Like I'm trying to aim for Krishna, right? So whatever I'm doing, let me see it as an aspect of him somehow. And so they can be reconciled. They're not exactly like opposed principles. They may seem that way. That's how I take it.
And I like how you talked about, or the reading talked about that, we have such a privileged position in our karma that we know, but most people don't recognize. Like we could have come back as whatever all the things you're saying, like the lower natures, but we're all walking around bewildered, unaware of our privileged karma. So it's great that we can now recognize that we have this great position of karma. We don't have to be so bewildered.
Yeah. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says gratitude is the beginning of bhakti because it opens ourselves up to Krishna.
Love it. Thank you.
Leanne says, Shastra is a map. It tells us where we're going and reminds us of our ultimate goal and who we, one second, who we are. Thank you so much for the reminder of how Shastra is an important tool to point us in the direction. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, Shastra is a terrific tool, and also it's up to us to deliberately remind ourselves of the goal of Shastra. Because just like I said earlier, like people have misused Shastra too. It's not impossible to do that. You can misuse the Maha Mantra, you can misuse Shastra. Just like you can culturally appropriate, you can be like, yeah, yoga's cool. I'm gonna use it to like tone out my abs. That's what it's all about. That's the whole point of yoga. That's cultural appropriation, but it's also like possible to individually appropriate anything. That's what fanaticism is. It's like you take something out of the context that it's given, and you become whatever you want to become. Whether it's I use Shastra to feel better about myself because at least I'm not a sinful person like those people, or I use it to feel smart and I can quote Shastra and everybody look at me because I'm giving class here. I know Sanskrit. Aren't I great? In fact, aren't I the greatest? Aren't I just kind of like a little Krishna right here? You know, isn't that like a thing people can do? You can use Shastra that way, or you can use anything that way. So Shastra is Krishna and it's reminding us of him, but it's also on us to take it as it is and remind ourselves of how to use it. And because you're all such sincere souls, you're all doing that. No one here is appropriating. And Prabhupada's helping us out by being so straightforward with these purports.
I appreciate the emphasis and reminder on how yoga practice is ultimately for connecting. And I love the line in the purport Prabhupada said that yoga means to get in touch with
Yeah.
Krishna or in touch with the divine. And you know, I'm leaving in shortly to go teach at a yoga festival for the rest of the weekend. And that is the mood in which I always hope and pray to be able to bring and to convey to people. And so I just feel extra encouraged in going to a physical asana yoga festival and to be bringing the reminder of what the primary goal is, even as we honor the secondary goal.
Yes, we're not against the secondary. We're not opposed to being in shape. It's a good thing. Prabhupada was very, very serious about going on a walk every day, and he had a very careful diet, and he got massages. He said it really helped. What do you call? He said massages are like old man gymnastics, just old man yoga. He really liked his massages. But we know how he dedicated his life outside of those hours is like to Christian service. So we want to keep the body healthy and mind healthy. It's an important thing to do. We're not saying you should suffer for the sake of your spiritual practice, but we're deeply grateful to Srila Prabhupada and the Acharyas for reminding us about what the goal of yoga is, so that we can represent it, because people want that. Whether it's at a yoga festival, whether I explicitly sign up to know about yoga, or it's in life, people want to know about the benefit of devotion. It's just so intrinsic to who we are. So you're all empowered to share that with everybody in whatever ways you feel inspired to do that in your life. Lord Chaitanya is given, there's no unemployment in Lord Chaitanya's movement. He's given full employment in the Sankirtan movement to just share bhakti with everyone and anyone. So here's Samantha sharing it with little Sienna, and Hare Krishna, and so forth. And yeah, good luck out there.
So I was thinking, I don't know, this popped into my head when you were talking about, you know, the things that, the rules and the things that that you need to do. You've been getting up for 20 years and you're going to follow the traffic laws. And for some reason, when we started talking about the traffic laws, I started drawing this analogy between, you know, our so Western society where we are now. There's so many rules, traffic laws, everything's very ordered, you know, that everyone stays in their lane and everyone stops, and you know, even the circles, you know, they feel a little crazy, but they're ordered, and you know, there's so many rules of the road. Yet in our culture here, like there's, you know, just generally overall, there's no, you know, real spirituality, no understanding of a true destination. and then you go on a trip to India and you land in Mumbai. And you're, there's seemingly no rules of the road. The traffic is insane. There's nobody following any of these types of external, laws or rules. Yet the focus of that entire culture and society is so spiritually focused. I don't know. I just found it interesting, and I just started thinking about that, you know, here there's so many rules of the road, but no serious, spiritual destination that's prevalent in our society.
Yeah.
Yet in India, there's like it's the opposite. Like there's so much spiritual destination. Nobody really cares how you get there or any rules to get there, but just get there.
Yeah, therefore Srila Prabhupada compared it to a crippled person and a blind person. He said, Western civilization is blind. They don't know the destination, but they have a very powerful body. And Indian culture is very, very wise and has vision, but it is not developed materially. It's like a crippled person whose limbs don't work. Therefore, that person has to get on the shoulders of the blind person and direct them. And together, they're able to function. One has a very strong body and a very weak sense of vision. The other person has great vision and cannot walk on their own. So we're using all those facilities here for Krishna service. We're not opposed to an ordered, structured, peaceful, clean society. It's very good. I mean, I glorify India for its spiritual culture, not for the way that it's become incredibly overpopulated or it's struggled with the questions of modernity in the last 100 years. We're not proud of that. That's not coming from the Vedas. That's coming from 21st century Kali Yuga. But we're very proud of the spiritual roots of the bhakti culture there. And if you can be an ordered, structured society, like, I mean, if you ever go to Japan, it's like a paragon of that. The trains they're on time to the minute and often to the second. So that's a good thing. It's nice to have that reliability. And it's not enough in life without Krishna, but it's nice. So you can get on time to morning program, get your train to the temple, so and so forth. Yeah. Any more reflections? Anyone in the Bhakti house basking in the glow of Lord Chaitanya? Haribol.
Haribol, Hare Krishna. My reflection was around this really grasping that Krishna is the doer and surrendering into that, and that what is a little amorphous, but I can try to express is I've always had this feeling like very uncomfortable with all of the privilege that I have in this life. I have definitely had struggles, but I feel very, very privileged in this life. And it makes me like incredible. It's always made me very uncomfortable. Like, why me? And like all of this. And I feel this great relief when I can just give all of my gratitude to Krishna. It's like I had nowhere to direct my gratitude. Like I felt it's like, yeah, just very unmoored before my relationship with Krishna and understanding the dynamic between myself and God. And without God, I just was like so lost in this, like what seems to be very like there's no reason for it, it's just random and like who knows. And that never sat well with me. And so for me, part of this idea of like the doer and surrendering into that is also this like, where can I direct this gratitude and trust that I do deserve the things that have come to me, and I don't need to understand why that's happening for me and maybe not somebody else. I can just trust Krishna. And it's a little amorphous. I just really came up this connection, so I might not be making a ton of sense, but it's just a great relief. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, otherwise there can be we're lost in the duality of it, where it's like either you see someone who has more and you're jealous or you're angry or disappointed and you want that, or you're guilty. It's like, why why was I not born in a war-torn region? Or, in my case, why was I born in a very difficult situation, but I got to leave safely when so many other people couldn't? I don't know. But what we can say is the devotional perspective is like, well, whatever happened or is happening, Krishna is giving it for my ultimate benefit. And yeah, it is really relieving. I resonate with that strongly, that I can just lean into my relationship with him and say, well, the good, the bad, and everything in between, I just know it's coming from you. And I don't have to get lost in it, which means I'm free from, if you're really there, you actually are free from the squabbling over territory that happens around isms, whether it's money or race or any other kind of aspect of privilege, which is real. These are aspects of life, right? Material life. But somebody who's actually spiritually oriented, while living in some material position, can actually be free from the situation of having more or less by actually being Krishna conscious. Because it's like everything's coming from Krishna. Every molecule of oxygen I'm breathing to even live is coming from Krishna. If I actually knew that, I wouldn't sit here, counting my pennies, thinking like I'm fortunate or unfortunate on that basis. I would just feel like he's really got me one way or another. He's always got me. And thank you for that, Krishna. Yeah, and I think we only have to look at what's happening in the world for those who are not really in touch with their relationship with the divine, to see how quickly we can be swept away by the duality of the situation. Whether you are in the privileged class or you're the temporarily or the temporarily unprivileged class, it's just one form of duality or another. And then the social, political, or whatever other kinds of revolutions that happen on those bases never actually change anything. Ultimately, they just reverse stuff, and then maybe you die and you're born in that class next time. Who knows? It doesn't actually change the fundamental dynamic. The world keeps going on with an overclass and underclass, and fortunate or unfortunate. And if you stick around long enough, you'll be unfortunate if you were fortunate, and vice versa. Anyway, no one stays in one place for long. So we have to have that Krishna conscious basis for stability. Otherwise, it's just chaos internally. All right. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Vanchakalpatarupyascha kripasindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. May Srila Prabhupada and Srimad Bhagavatam bless us to remember that Krishna is the goal in our all our activities today, our thoughts and words. Hare Krishna. Great to be with all of you. See you soon.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Krishna, you